this and let me figure out somebody who's doing, and then make them like, isn't that what an entrepreneur does? Like, I feel like we have these misconceived notions of like what an quote unquote entrepreneur does, right? Yeah. I think what an entrepreneur does well is they have the confidence to go into the unknown because they'll figure it out. They have that like figure it outness, right? I'll be resourceful enough that when I run into roadblocks that I don't know something, I will find the resource that helps me solve that problem. And I will do that over and over and over again, and I will solve problems for profit. To me, that's an entrepreneur. Yeah. I feel like society sometimes looks at an entrepreneur and they're like, they got to cast this big vision and create this new product that anybody's ever seen before and do it in a way that it's marketed where no one's, it's just like, that's not how it works. Like, yeah, there are once in generational people when you think of like a Steve Jobs or something like that you think of when you think of that level of entrepreneur. But for the rest of the people in business, like, it's more about what you did. So I get a kick at, you saying, hey, I don't really have like the entrepreneurial itch. And I'm like, dude, everything you just said about your story is like what an entrepreneur does, right? And by the way, all the other stuff that is attributed to entrepreneurs, a lot of that is like tinkering. That is doing stuff that's distracting, doesn't make them money, and they end up building businesses that they don't want to be a part of and that aren't successful and aren't worth anything because they didn't have the humility to just say, hey, who's already doing what I want to do? Let me just model what they do. And then if that spins off in a level of uniqueness that's beautiful and it works, great. But I'm very inspired by that because, again, it demystifies what an entrepreneur is and it simplifies.
Good point.
Well, and I'd give there's one missing piece to that. I'd argue that there's one missing piece to that process from an entrepreneur perspective, and that is taking risk, taking the burden of risk. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where you are today. Right? It's like, hey, look, man, I know this utility. I've done this before. The process is the same. If you're going to tell me that this is what the process looks like, Taylor, okay, great. Well, I've done that four times.
Same position I'm in. I've already done
it.
It requires, but I just have
now it's like, okay, you're telling me the next step is for me to bear the burden of the risk, not someone else, right? I've been a solopreneur. I'm not a solopreneur. I've been an intrapreneur perspective. I've enterprised something inside a confined, risk-free bubble. Mm-hmm. Now the next step is for me to take those skills that I've stacked, which I love what you say, skill stacked, and be able to take this out on outside of the bubble and enterprise something to where the risk is mine. Man, that sounds terrifying and exciting all at the same time. So talk to us about that. That's where you are today.